and we can get started. Over to you, Kirika.
Thanks, Marina. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, to this Mapbox webinar. I'm your host, Kirika Jameson. I'm a senior account manager here at Mapbox. And today I'm joined by a special guest, Neil Skoglund, the founder and managing director of Trackpac. For those of you who may not be familiar, Trackpac is a low-cost, long-range asset tracking solution built on the Helium network. They're a new startup capitalizing on this technology to enable new forms of asset tracking for items previously too small or just not cost effective to track. In our 30 minutes, I'll start with some quick context on Mapbox, and then we'll dig into asset tracking with Neil, including how and why Trackpac builds with Mapbox and what responses they've seen from their customers and the wider market. We'll also keep some time for questions from the audience, as Marina mentioned. So if you're watching the session live, please feel free to ask questions through the Q&A function in Zoom, and we will do our best to answer them live or follow up with written answers. So for those of you not familiar with Mapbox, Mapbox equips organizations to innovate with location technology. This innovation takes many forms because location underpins so many aspects of daily life and decision-making. Whether you're planning and tracking around with Strava or taking a tier scooter to get around town, ordering food for delivery on Instacart, or navigating in a Toyota Tundra or Rivian, you're using Mapbox technology. The need for location intelligence is everywhere, and Mapbox exists to help our customers build with maps and location services to better serve their clients and grow their business. You know, today with over 3.9 million registered developers with Mapbox, we have more than 700 million monthly active users of apps that use Mapbox to power 2.1 billion miles of road data every week, which in turn equips us to make over 100,000 map updates every single day. That's the power of a living location platform. The modular architecture of the Mapbox platform means that any developer, any company can build a location intelligent application tailored to their needs across web, mobile, and even within the cab of a vehicle. It's the stories of what Mapbox customers build that really illuminate the full potential of the Mapbox platform. So that's why we love to host conversations like this one with Trackpac to share in more detail how Mapbox is helping them innovate within their industry. And with that, maybe turn it over here to Neil to talk a little bit more about Trackpac. And maybe just to get us started, Neil, can you sort of set the stage for us? What is asset tracking all about? And why does Trackpac, what do you guys offer to your customers in this space?
Sure. So asset tracking is, there's two things, loss prevention, but there's also analytics data based on what your objects are doing. So if you're a rental company, you can see where your equipment is being used and also make sure it's safe on site whilst it's there. The current market and the current technology that's out there has meant that it's just so power hungry that generally you're paying thousands for a device, and those devices are tracking things like trucks or very expensive equipment, so it just doesn't work on the smaller scale. The technology that we use means that we can track anything from pets to bikes to off the grid locations with very small trackers that last for years at a time.
Wow. That's amazing. So it sounds like you guys are really unlocking the potential for tracking a lot of different types of things that previously were sort of out of range to do from a cost perspective. Now, for those of us who are unfamiliar with Helium, can you share a bit more about how the Helium network and nanotags work, and particularly what's exciting about these technologies in this asset tracking space, which traditionally for much larger, more expensive objects, and how does it differ? How does it differ from that legacy system?
Yeah, so they use a technology called LoRaWAN, which is long-range, low-power technology. The problem is Starlink's great. We all like Starlink, but it needs a 250-watt charger to run the thing. So you just can't use it for smaller objects. So what LoRaWAN does is you could take an internet connection like that and rebroadcast it for sensors. So you can put these hotspots in your house. This is one of mine. They come in many forms. This is another one of mine. And these things can be installed in your house. And for doing that and for installing that, you're actually given cryptocurrency. So you're paid for being a host, basically. So this allows you to, broadcast something like 40, 50 kilometers of range. So there's a decentralized network. There's over 400,000 hotspots active on the network that encompass the globe, basically. So there's this great network that enables us to have battery life of years. I can show you a little from my screen, an example. So I like to say this is the world's most famous dog in Helium, because this is my dog walk every day. This is an example of me tracking my dog over the Helium network, basically. So if he runs off, I get to see what happens. And these are the hotspots in my area. These are the hotspots that are picking it up over time. So what I like about Mapbox is that it really allows you to go into that data and see it on a level that you just wouldn't have seen it in before. I mean, this is a big one for me for a Helium host, so I can see the height and understand why that ping is working there, which is so cool. If you just do a top-down view with a traditional map, it's just not the same. So it's a really immersive experience, which is why we built with Mapbox.
Wow, that's great. Beyond the advantages of this technology, what sets Trackpac apart in your industry? Are there other differentiators that are attracting customers to Trackpac?
Yeah, so one of the main ones is because we know where every hotspot is on the network, we can actually ditch the GPS and do what's called multi-trilateration. So this means that we can start using devices that have no GPS in them, that extends the battery life even further and means that the package that they can be installed in is smaller. So that's where something like a nanotag comes in. But this is a sticker tracker with no GPS. You can see it's absolutely razor thin. And this thing can work out location based on the network. So this is what one of the main draws to the network is, that we can use it for this technology and not need GPS and install these things on a scale that is just unbelievable. So some of the companies we're working with, it's about reuse and recycle. So they can install these on every package that they send out and make sure that it's recycled by collecting it afterwards. Some of the companies that we're dealing with, you need to make sure pharmaceuticals are arriving on site at the right temperature and that they're compliant. And at the moment, the technology out there means that most people are writing a thing and doing a manual check, but this can automate it. And there's some exciting technology that could be built on top of it as well. For example, if your food's stored in a refrigerator and refrigeration temperature goes bad, you can react to the data live, and you can have a system that runs all of this and saves you from wasting that product.
Wow, that's very exciting. It's very interesting what you guys are able to do, and I like the idea of recycling and tracking some of those things. Based on your example here showing Mapbox and why, it's unique and looking at things from an elevation standpoint, can you tell us, obviously why you're using Mapbox today, but like what led you to Mapbox? What led you to that decision? And can you dive in a little bit more on how and what you're using for Mapbox today?
Sure. So we originally went with a free open source version of Maps, but it just felt stuck in the past, a very top-down view, a very basic color scheme. If we wanted to start changing things, it was, it's just not doable. So we came from the Helium world, and there's this great site called Helium Explorer that lets you see all the hotspots, and that was running Mapbox originally. So we took that as a basis. Maybe we should look into this. So we started doing that and we started implementing it. And then we just saw, features like buildings, and we could use Mapbox Studio to change every single color, the amount of labels on the screen. The other great thing I loved as well is your examples. There's an example for nearly everything to build. So most of what you're seeing on the screen today is taken from every one of your examples. So the pathway for a developer to use a system like this is just fantastic. So, and it's a really immersive experience. What we were lacking before was it just felt very detached, you just can't see those elevation profiles and things. So when you're actually looking at it from this point of view, you can see the terrain of we've exaggerated it a little bit here for show, but you can really see the terrain that you're in and understand why you're getting the responses that you can. Now, as a hotspot host, I really love this because I'm the one putting hotspots out there. So I can see, oh, well, maybe I should put one on the hill over there, and I'd cover the whole region, but it also, so it lets me see the data in a different way that just wasn't possible in other mapping systems.
Wow. That's very exciting. What, and maybe you kind of touched on it, but just make sure we're not missing anything, the features of Mapbox that were the most valuable. Yeah.
So we do a number of things. This is a bad example because it's a walk-in profile, but the next one is we use the Mapbox matching for routes. So you can set a profile of driving, and then the Mapbox actually routes it against the road for us. That's a great one. The second one is that we use the reverse geocode lookup. So every address that is printed on our system is via Mapbox, and then we use Mapbox GL to draw it all. So everything is in the Mapbox ecosystem to build this solution now.
That's outstanding. And it's so good to hear that all of the work that our team puts into documentation and things like that, where it sounds like we're very useful to you guys to get up and going and create such beautiful maps to delight your customers.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so easy to do everything. And if I've needed help, there's a Discord channel that I can go speak to developers, and I've had help and I've had guidance on what to do. And I can't say that about Google before, it's just a complete difference. So it's great to see.
That's awesome. We obviously love to hear that. I think you prepared maybe a quick demo of the current version of Trackpac for us today.
Sure. So generally what you see is our main app. This is a full asset tracking solution with alerts. So I see a full history. I can replay that history. I can walk around in the data. I can select different days of the week. And we have things like geofences in our system. So we can set a location. You can see I've got one here. This is my home address. So when they leave this area, I get a push notification to my phone. So that's one of the major features that people love, is being able to set geofences. So for a number of reasons, that's good. You might want to know when something's arriving, so you can trigger an action. So if something's arriving, alert the warehouse manager to go and receive the item, for example, or if it's arriving and it's arrived at the wrong place. That's another one that happens quite a bit. You can get an alert, this is at the wrong depot, So it's that full system. And we simplify it down to just scan a QR code. So I haven't got an example. A QR code on the back of the tracker, and that's on our system. So you can just literally sign up to our site, scan a QR code, and you're tracking whatever you want, set up these geofences, and deal with the data. One of the big things that sets us apart is that we've got full API for this solution as well. So if you wanted to implement it in your own system, you only need to pull from our API.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, geofences sound like they would be extremely helpful for delivery, or possibly high risk areas, things like that, depending on what you're tracking. In general, how has the response been from your customer base? Have you seen an impact? You talked about starting out with another map provider, and the experience just wasn't really what you looked for. Have you been able to see an impact from your customers, or feedback from them about this new mapping experience that you guys are providing?
Yeah, they love it. One of the features that we've done quite recently, last few months, is public sharing links. So people are able to really show off their data to their users in testing. So they say, "Wow, look at this journey." I see them all the time. There's a tracker from Mapping Network on our system. It went from one side of Canada to the other, down to America, back, and then up again. And he can share that data publicly, and people can explore that data and see how the system works. So Mapbox is essential for that. People could look at rows in a database and it would mean nothing, but they need to see it on a map to understand how good this network is, what you can achieve with this network. And having the map allows us to have this wonderful customer experience that they can just log on, scan the QR code, and instantly have an immersive experience right in front of them.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like your customers, like you said, are taking these maps and using them for internal discussions or to understand how goods move. Um, any other examples or features from the platform that you feel like maybe are important to show the group here about what Trackpac is doing, or even unique use cases? I know you and I have talked about a lot of different use cases. We talked at the beginning of, hey, we're tracking things that were, out of range to track, either too small or the value wasn't high enough, things like that. Maybe share with us some unique use cases that Trackpac's getting into.
Sure. So just to name a few off the top of my head, there's a company that are providing what's called a digital twin. So the idea is that they can provide a digital twin of an item in the real world, and that just opens up so many avenues. Like I said earlier, one of the biggest use cases we've seen is knowing where. Sorry, let me get that straight. So one of the bigger use cases is reuse and recycle. So being able to send a product somewhere and then recover it as well. So making sure that you have full accountability for your products and making sure that there isn't waste. A lot of the times these objects, a tracker would cost £500. So tracking something that's worth 100 or 50 just doesn't seem to make sense at that scale, especially when they can be lost. But when we can bring these things down to a few bucks, and a few bucks for a year to use them, that means that they can just stick a label on it, and it's cost effective for them to do. So one of our biggest use cases at the moment is using these nano tags. So again, these don't have GPS, so they use a location engine that we've built based on the Helium network. So it's been a really vital experience that they've had this system to play with and use to understand the use case. So I have a big problem is I need to educate people on Helium, not just our technology as well. So being able to send them something like this in the post and then have the Mapbox experience is vital. But these companies are starting to explore it. They're starting to use it in bulk, and they're starting to show some really great use cases. Like, we've seen package companies very interested in it. We've seen people that want to know when their items are in storage, when they're on site for rental equipment. Another great one is, animals in transit, pharmaceuticals in transit. So it's monitoring temperatures and making sure that things are compliant. Last mile delivery for things like pharmaceuticals is huge. I don't know if you know anyone that's diabetic, but their medicine has to be chilled. So I would want to know, if that's coming to me, what temperature that's at, and that's just not being done at the moment.
Right. Or, the common problem we all run into is you're waiting for a delivery, but when will it actually be there? But if you're waiting for something as sensitive, like you said, as possibly insulin or a live animal, you can actually track in real time, where is that, when will it be there? So that to be able to be there to bring it in right away, instead of our standard, you have a 4-hour window to receive this.
yeah, exactly that. And the scale that these kind of stickers enable mean that you can do that, and it's cost effective. And that's the big problem that we solve with these kind of solutions, along with that, there's the temperature as well. So if you've got something that's temperature sensitive, you can use that information. A big thing about these stickers is they have data recovery as well. So even if they went out of range, you can still go back to it and ask it for previous frames and have full compliance history for the whole journey of that item. So that's a big selling point.
Yeah, I can imagine that the use cases for improved security of assets, also from, business to consumer and user perspective, for example, renting a bicycle or a scooter or something like that. Have you seen more cases like that, an uptick in those types of use cases?
Yeah, so we're working with a very big company called Brompton Cycles. They've been exploring our technology for a while, and they're looking to use it. So it just means that they can track rental fleets, they can track delivery of bikes, they can track usage of bikes. So they could track it, see how many miles it has against that bike and when it's due for service and things like that. It's in the exploratory stage, and we're very deep in that exploratory stage with them. But just seeing the scale that could bring is just mind blowing. Suddenly when you look at single countries having 15 million bikes that aren't tracked, you see the scale. And it's the same thing with pets. Like, I track my dog. Why isn't everybody? Because the solutions out there at the moment mean that, you get a tracker, you're paying $150, and then that solution will last a week, and then you'll have to keep charging it. And the problem is, when you're charging it every week, you forget to do it. And then when you need it the most, it's not charged, so you can't use it. Whereas the technology we're using is months and months of battery life at a minimum for a very, very small device. And if you go larger, a great example here is a Digital Matter Oyster. It's not the largest unit in the world. This can last for 10 years. So wow. 10 years of tracking that you never have to change the batteries and never have to worry about losing it. So I put one in every car, every bike, on my pets. My wife has one in my bag. I have one in my pocket. I track everything. It's great that you can do that,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thinking about, tracking your pet can really solve a lot of issues and hopefully prevent a lot of heartbreak
exactly.
of someone getting loose. Well, I think with that, I'd love to maybe take a look at some of the questions that have come in on our Q&A channel here from the audience, if that works for you, Neil. We have a few different questions. Just a quick reminder, please share your questions in the Q&A function so that we can keep track of them. But just looking here, I think let's take this first question. They said, thank you for your presentation. It's exciting to see a young company already building with so many location features. What are you interested in building next? Are there other technologies or features that you have planned there at Trackpac?
Yeah, so it's really exploring the technology that Helium's made available. A lot of what we've done so far has been, discovery, working out what we can do with it, how we can do it, and how we can implement that in the business. So a lot of what we do is driven by what the customer wants. So a lot of what we've got so far with is working with customers and working out what they want. And it's the economies of scale that are very important as well. So that often means that they need custom devices. So we're looking into those custom devices and how we can best integrate that data with them and provide a very useful service that is exactly what they want in the industry that they want. So full integrations with their system that just work out of the box, and it's not another piece of software to learn. So we're very customer driven. A great example, someone come to us a while back and they wanted to track shopping trolleys. So the check-in rate of a shopping trolley, they needed to know twice a day, but they needed a full solution to pull that data. So it's taken a while to work out how to integrate that best with them and what exactly that industry needs, but that's what kind of drives us.
It's great. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know how big of a problem it is worldwide, but keeping track of shopping carts here in the US has proven to be difficult at times. Find them everywhere.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, with shopping cart trolleys, it's so easy on the Helium network. They can set up one gateway in their house, on the building, and suddenly they've got 40 miles of coverage. And it's not remembering that they need to charge the batteries all the time. These things are going to last 10 years at a time. So very likely the lifetime of a shopping trolley.
That's fantastic. All right, let's see. The next question here is, as an innovative newcomer that's shaking up the shipping and tracking industry, what advice would you give to other companies interested in the potential of these technologies?
Know your market. Find a problem and solve it. That was the big one for me. If you're not solving a problem or affecting the bottom line somewhere, maybe that you need to rethink about what you're doing with that solution. And then the next one is, we love this phrase called minimum lovable product. Sorry, I couldn't remember it for a second. So produce something with a feature that is lovable, that makes them coming back. So work out the problem, produce a proof of concept, and use this phrase called minimum lovable product, and come up with a solution that will get people coming back with just that one feature that's enough to go. You basically don't want to go too far without understanding the market. And reproduce it, retry it, make sure that it works from more than one. That's a big part of what we've done. What we thought would work with everybody, we've then had to take and work with everyone else.
Great advice, knowing your customer. And I think I might steal that, minimum lovable product.
Yeah. Most of the time people are told to make a minimum viable product, and that just doesn't make sense. That's just enough to survive, but what's going to keep someone coming back to your solution? For us, that was geofences, getting notifications when something happened with the data. So we launched with an app, just an app that had geofences and allowed you to add trackers. So minimum lovable product.
Very good. I think we'll start seeing more of that now. So let's see, another question here. Why choose Helium as your network of choice? Are there any limitations or risks about Helium, and how did you evaluate it and make that choice? And a related question, any impressions of Amazon's Sidewalk network? Are there advantages from these larger players entering the mesh network space?
Helium was a network of choice for me because they were the first ones in this space, really. I saw at the time I just exited a very successful business, and I was looking at what to do next. I like what cryptocurrency brings to the table. I know it's not for everyone, but for me, I love it, and I think it's got very relevant future. Blockchain technology more than cryptocurrency itself, right? The blockchain technology is an immutable ledger. That's what I love, and Helium is that solution. So the difference between someone like Helium and Amazon is that Helium doesn't see your data, can't read your data, everything's encrypted over the air, and they won't sell it to other companies. So they can't access your data and they can't sell it. So when you use a company like Amazon, they extend their rights and basically surrender everything. So you're giving a company like that your location a lot of the time. You're giving Google your location, you're giving Apple your location at all times. There's a big fuss about a game called Pokemon Go. They're selling users' data and where they're traveling to. So with the Helium network, it's decentralized. If I don't like something about the network, I can submit what's called a Helium improvement protocol and change the network. So I couldn't do that with Amazon. So and as to your second question, with Amazon Sidewalk, yeah, it's great. Amazon have just validated that LoRaWAN is a technology to use. It makes so much sense to use a long range, low power network for small devices. Amazon have shown that, by turning on echoes and things like that, Ring doorbells is another one that they use, they can handle some of this traffic. But the big problem is with that is I would much prefer a network that pays its hotspot owners rather than just automatically enrolls them into a system. And my earnings for placing a hotspot are based on how well it's set up. So, we set these big antennas up, here's an example, these big antennas up, but I know that's going to be available, whereas Amazon Sidewalk, will I know a Ring doorbell's available? Will I know that there's an Echo Dot on someone's side being able to check in? So it's a great idea, but I think it will always be a bit restricted in what it can do.
All right. Well, we do have a few more questions, but unfortunately, it looks like we are at time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I just wanted to close out by saying, thank you so much, Neil, for joining us today, sharing your insights, talking to us about Trackpac and what you're doing. And, absolutely congratulations on the tremendous growth you guys have been seeing. Also like to thank everyone who joined us live and for sharing your questions. If you'd like to stay on for a few extra minutes, we'll see if there are any other questions we can answer in the Q&A chat box. But other than that, thank you all for joining us.
And thanks again for having me. I just want to say how amazing Mapbox has been to work with, and just how much support we've got. It's just been fantastic. Thank you.